Davies Archery Project. And very much appreciate your time. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson and everyone here for the invitation to come over, and we're very happy to be here to provide an update on this project. My name is Jeffrey Clatchard. I'm the manager of regional parks in the western part of the region, including, of course, Kirkland Regional Park here on Bowen Island. This is Sylvia Pendle. She is our park planner for the western part of the region as well, including Kirkland Regional Park. So we've got a presentation ready for you. It's a fairly brief presentation. We can run through that. Sylvia's going to lead the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions at all after the presentation.
Great. Well, welcome, and thank you for having us. I'm so glad that everyone's here. I just thought I'd start with the agenda, and so Jeff has already welcomed everybody and introduced us. So I'm just going to move on to the presentation. So our regional park system is in 22 municipalities with 1 Treaty First Nation, 22 parks, 5 greenways, 2 ecological conservancy areas, and 4 park reserves. And this was our regional parks plan, which was approved in 2016, and that tells us what we need to do, and we need to protect natural areas and connect people to nature. That's our overarching mandate. And Kirkland Regional Park, within that system, is located in Snug Cove on Bowen Island, with over 300,000 visitors a year at over 220 hectares and over 13 kilometers in trails. Cool. Yeah. One of the things that's so great about Crippen is that it's such a diverse park, and it has so many different kinds of landscapes. It traverses all sorts of different sort of geomorphologies and such. And we've got Killarney Lake and Dorman Point and the Snug Cove picnic area where Davies Orchard is located. And this, it's the village of Snug Cove and Crippen are really interwoven. They're really knit together, and you can see the Lady Alexandria Promenade going through, and the causeway and Davies Orchard. They're all tied together and all interconnected, and they're an important part of the village and the park vision that was established with the Bowen Island Municipality Snug Cove plan. And there are, of course, a lot of historical features in Crippen Regional Park, such as the orchard and the cottages, of course, Seaside Cottage, the causeway at the lagoon, the ruins at the terminal farm in the meadow, and the Lady Alexandra Boardwalk. There we go. This is, I really like this image and this quote, and it sort of really speaks to the guiding principles of the Snug Cove Village Plan, which is about scale and aesthetic and character, and about preserving the ambiance of a small compact village, promoting pedestrian environment, and integrating the built environment of the cove within the park, so the village and the park concept, and respecting the heritage character of the cove. Davies Orchard itself is, as you know, in Snug Cove, and it's about 2.3 acres, and the open space is somewhat limited. There are trails, parking, and 6 cottages. And in terms of context, this is kind of probably old news to everybody, but it's agricultural in background, and orchard and cottage history, and then Metro Vancouver acquired the land in 1983, and we've the Bowen Island Heritage Preservation Association started up early on, and we found the site was underused, deteriorating cottages, and limited use and poor connections. The purpose of the project was to improve public access and use of the orchard area, to better integrate Davies Orchard into Crippen Regional Park, and to celebrate the unique heritage of that site. This is the approved concept that went to the board and was approved in November 2017. And so the features of that plan are that central open space and the public cottage access through programming and various other methods, and site circulation and connections, improved connections, orchard plantings, and collaboration with partners, and family-friendly amenities and historic features preserved, celebrated, and used. This is just an overview of the process that we've had to date and where we are now in the process. So in 2016, we started with the project and the public engagement, and in 2017, we had board approval for the plan of Davies Orchard, and in 2018, 4 cottages were decommissioned, and now we're at, hitting the tail end of 2018, and going into 2019, we have detailed design underway, and that will inform a lot of questions that we all have right now. And then from 2020 and onward, we'll have project implementation. Next steps include completing that detailed design of the concept plan, seeking input on design details, working out agreements for existing cottage use, so the museum and Bowen Heritage and others. Going forward, sharing information with the municipality here, and collaborating. There were a number of things that we heard people were really interested in being involved with, and so like the demonstration gardens, the orchards, of course, the museum, and interpretive features. And that concludes my presentation, so thank you very much, and we're really happy to take any questions that you have.
So how do you see us being able to help?
Well, we think you guys as the experts. You live here, you're on the ground. We're a regional system, so we've always needed regional input as well. But I can just, like, I've had loads of, this is just an example, for instance, with the Rileys about the orchard and the apple trees, and John and Josephine have so generously advised on so much around the orcharding, and that's, that's so helpful because they understand the climate and the details, so things like that. I remember very, very early days walking, I don't know that you were there. I remember it was the first time I met Melissa. In fact, I think it was my second week at work here or something like that. And Tom brought me over here, and we met, and one of the places that we walked through was the entry point into the park at Orchard Lane there, and you were ready to rip all that stuff out right then and there and plant it up. And I think that's such a, and I've heard, comments, we've heard that from the community over and over again in our public engagement. So that to me seems like a very obvious place, and especially when you see the great, entry planting that and design that was done when you walk off the ferry and stuff. There's so many great resources in this community that, and that we've always talked about the interpretive element. We're going to be having an interpretive trail. In fact, I'll go back to the plan just so we can sort of visualize it a little bit better. In this area here, there's going to be an interpretive trail loop, and that's such a great opportunity, to involve people and to, hear about what everyone's interested in, and there are probably some really good ideas about how we do that and what kind of information we include, and there's great local expertise around that, so we'd like to work with people on that.
And yeah, and just to add on Sylvie's response, I think there's a few ways that we would look for input and support right now in the design of it, but also going forward in the operation and use of it. So there's the great history there, certainly the museum cottage, but site elements like the orchard, certainly the museum cottage, future programming on site, all of these things are, made much richer by working together and probably only possible if we work together. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm just sort of imagining how it would play out in real time.
As a next step, I think we'll be looking to have some kind of workshop to test or to generate some ideas around specific elements, so the signage, and like as these ideas come together, the details, as Sylvia mentioned. So that will be the sort of next step of that, of how that will come together.
And would that be, that's 2019, once the detailed design is underway?
I think so. I think at this stage it looks like it would probably be very early 2019. Yeah. I think we could probably do it still in 2018, but then we start getting close to the C word and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So and then people are just too busy and stuff. But I think people will feel kind of refreshed and all in January and would be ready to be at it.
And would that be coordinated by financial staff, or
Yeah.
Because I know that there is an RFP sort of out there at this point.
Right.
So could you say more about that?
So our consultant will be working with us on that, and we'll be having, and some of the team members on the consulting team are, experts in public engagement and in interpretive, they're doing interpretive kind of work. So we'll be working, but I think we'll be working with them because I think we've learned a lot in the last, few years working here with the team, and so I think and it's also something that we do, and I think just more heads will be, I think it'll be a fair bit of work. I'll be supporting them. Yeah. It'll be fun, yeah.
Just in terms of talking about connections to the code, in terms of the detailed design, there's two ways to look at it as well, because there's connections in from the code itself, from the village, and also there's the interconnectedness of Davies Orchard and its interface with the code. And I believe it was the architect James Tour who did a concept plan for how the private commercial properties that back on the park could, in a sense, be double facing and also face
like
the park.
fronts and backs.
Fronts and back,
Yeah.
and for them to create connections through private property, through that design, and also to have some kind of a pedestrian spine that ran along that interface. And so this design doesn't really address that opportunity, and I was hoping that opportunity wouldn't be lost as we get more detailed into that, because there's opportunities for real synergy between the code and the park, and that helps both, right? It's win-win.
We agree with you, actually, and it was something that we looked at, and we've actually allowed for the opportunity to occur in the future. So, because all we can do is deal with the park per se, the way that we've oriented, the way that the parking and such and the entry in has been oriented, that allows for that to occur, because that turning those backs into fronts, that's still a function of the municipality and not of the regional government, but because we think that's a great idea, because that would completely, that would just change the use of that space. That is such a dead zone. We recognize that, yeah.
Have you seen the tour concept?
Oh, absolutely,
Like,
yeah. We worked with it, but we
Yeah.
were, all of the work, you guys have done so much work on your village, and we referenced all of that material because it was, you built on work over many years, so, yeah.
So how would you go about achieving that then? You come and present to council and talk to them about the planning changes? How would you communicate with the municipal council about being open to that shift? Obviously, we're going to have a new council.
Yes, yeah, you are, yeah.
Yeah, do you mean in reference to the private businesses on that?
Being open to that planning change, open to that shift in, because I think it would make a significant difference to the integration of the orchard and the coast,
I think it's a really important point and a great point. And as Sylvia said, I think, as a park provider, we need to plan for that and make provision for that future change. Obviously, we won't advocate for any local planning issues or those kind of decisions that lie with the municipality, but we certainly heard from folks that they want that engagement. So in the site planning work that's within the park, we'll try to plan for those, leave room for those future connections and pedestrian ways.
But what I'm hearing is you're anticipating the timing on those future things could be years down the road, whereas the timing for this needs to happen and not be held up by things that might not ever happen. So allow for
That's
them,
right.
allow for them, but.
Yeah, or they may happen in a way that doesn't absolutely reflect the plan that James did for whatever reason, and they might, but we've allowed for that space to be flexible so that that can happen, because that would definitely activate that space tremendously, if we see the value in that.
And the views of the private business would be really critical, and some may be quite amenable to having the discussion, and others may just be up to their eyeballs in their current, day-to-day business.
It made me wonder if it might not be a good idea to meet with the businesses that this relates to.
Okay.
It's-
Yeah.
They're going to be impacted by it one way or another.
I have a question about culture and preservation of culture. What I heard from a lot of people, because I was kind of naive going into the deliberations that have led to where we are now as well. What I heard from a lot of people is that the times, the so-called steamship days, when this was the heyday of this particular area, there are a lot of fond memories, there are a lot of stories, there are a lot of photographs. I recently noticed brought to our attention, John Dowler brought to our attention these photographs that show, that he's made up, that kind of show what the area originally looked like, just to give you a feeling of what it was like to live, in those exciting, scary, bizarre days. And, every change that happens, everybody that dies, every time one of these cottages goes away, a bit of that culture is lost. And I'm just wondering, is there some way in the interpretation to try to bring that back to life? Can't do it physically. Can we use photographs and stories using some kind of technology or multimedia to bring that sense of what that was like alive again? Because I think that's a part of what heritage is all about, is not just preserving, the physical items, but preserving the stories and the memories and the images of what this area was like. So.
Yeah, I think there are some really good opportunities. I think there are a lot of different kinds of opportunities as well. And that's what we'd be looking for in terms of collaboration as well. It's a great place to collaborate with everybody here on that. And there are opportunities in terms of, acknowledging some form of acknowledgement of the think one of the things that I was so interested in the heritage or the historical review that Denise Cook did when we originally did the assessment on the orchard, was that she really made that connection between sort of transportation history and what was here, but also the reason people were coming here. And that was because of the orchards and the natural environment. And I think it's such a good fit with our mandate, which is about, protecting, unique ecosystems and connecting people to nature. So I think it's all a good fit, and I think it can all be acknowledged. I think there's some really great ways of doing that. That's why we really wanted to have, a professional, like an exhibit and interpretive design professional working on that team with us to help guide us a little bit.
Nice.
Piggybacking on Dave's culture thing, and maybe adding a little bit of a tourism aspect to it as well. I noticed on one of the earlier slides, the mandate of metro parks is to bring nature to people, people to nature. And it seems to me, and it is an extra step getting people from Horseshoe Bay or from the Lower Mantle over here on the ferry. A little bit more of a, it's like bridges and ferries, right?
Yeah.
And so to have a, a hook, something that demeans it, but something that differentiates and identifies it as something that really people want to come over to see because it is something special. And I think the history and the culture of the orchard as a funnel to bring people in and then out to the park is a real plus. And so if one can feature that as much as possible, both internally and also in materials talking about it that are promulgated through the region, I think the more successful Metro will be in bringing people in. And we all benefit because it's good for the economy as well.
Yeah. And those are great comments, and it's interesting that, to both your points, I think historically it was that place where people came to connect with nature and each other, and it still is in that same way. And we track how many people visit our parks, and so far this year, there's 6% more people visiting Recreational Park than there was last year. So there's no shortage of people living in such a dense urban environment that benefit from an accessible place to come and connect with nature and experience these kind of things. And that a lot of that thinking is at the core of this. It will provide that opportunity, that destination for people to come to.
And we've got at Bowen Tourism has had a pretty effective tourism marketing campaign, which has had an effect for that as well.
Well, and I think I just bought the BC magazine or whatever.
Yeah.
There's an article on Bowen in there.
Our grumpy tourism message, right? Come over and go away.
Yeah,
It's pretty accurate. It's not bad.
A lot of tourists.
Yeah.
One of the things that's come up in our discussion of it the last couple of years is just sort of general questions about buildings in metro parks. And I was wondering if you could speak to that and sort of where Metro's thinking is at on buildings and parks.
In terms of how we approach buildings in our parks? Yeah, I can provide a high-level sort of overview of that. We have well over 100 buildings in our parks, in varying levels of condition, in varying levels of quality, designation, use, and so on, ranging from barns to sheds to nature houses and so on. We're currently going through a process now of trying to inventory them and take stock of the condition of all of them and figure out sort of what the future holds for the system. We look at these things through a similar lens of what is there a need for the building? Is there a park use? Is there a public use? And what's the value the building brings to the park and the system? I guess the sort of short answer is we have many buildings in the system, and we're sort of looking at uses and condition of them right now. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, and I guess the related question is more specifically about heritage buildings in metro parks and how they're used within the park system, because I think that would be helpful for us to hear.
Yeah, so there's a range of buildings there's some that are designated heritage and others that have historic value of varying degrees. Some have a role in the park as a visual landmark, and they're not actively used. We have barns and other facilities that are essentially shells that kind of tell a cultural landscape story. There's other buildings that are bookable, as is proposed here. There's other buildings that are used by community groups, partner groups to provide programs, sort of similar to the museum here. We have those in other parks. Trying to think how else some of our other heritage buildings are used. In some cases, in very remote cases, they've been used by caretakers where that service is needed. Yeah, those are a few examples of how they're used. Trying to think. There's more in the eastern part of the region where there's a bit more of that agricultural history than in the western part of the region. Does that answer the question? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about there's one that has, it's a bat house.
Oh, that's on Dee's
Oh,
Island.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
It's
yeah,
a
Dee's Island
habitat.
is, yeah,
A what house?
yeah. Well, Dee's Island is a great example of where we do have some heritage buildings.
Brazilla.
And it is the largest bat colony in BC. We didn't put it there, but the bats came, as they do to old buildings. And a beautiful old mansion, and it has an incredible bat colony in it on Dee's Island, absolutely incredible. So that's an unintended use of a heritage building. Next door,
There's an old heritage school in Peachland that has
yeah,
a bat nursery in the
Oh,
yeah.
rafters and
That's
everything up in
great,
there.
yeah.
Doing our part.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're often used. They're great places for weddings and stuff like that. So that was an unintended use, but a great one.
And actually on that, on Dee's Island, there's also there's an old agricultural hall as well, and that's actually our service yard.
I have another question, if I might.
Yeah.
One of the later slides in terms of timing talks about implementation and beyond.
Yeah.
And the beyond got me thinking because one of the questions that's been asked is budget and timing, and are we going to see implementation happening in a short frame of time with the budget that's needed to get done? Or are we looking at a multiple year time frame with different metro boards and different priorities and whatever, and could this end up falling through the cracks? Those kind of concerns and questions.
Yeah, and it's a good question. The budget we have in hand right now that we're working with is the consulting detailed design will be ready for a capital investment. So the most recent 5-year budget that was presented to the Regional Parks Committee last week had $1 million in 2021 investment planned for this site, and then subsequent, I believe, investment in the next year, 2022, of I have to check on the exact figure, but I believe it's $500,000 or perhaps $1 million. So that investment's currently in the 5-year budget, 2 years from now. So that's the picture, what it looks like right now. We know we have some design work to do to get us there. It is a big project. We're not a municipal park system that's, we're not capital heavy. So projects that are over $1 million, they take some time, and this is one of the larger projects making its way through our system right now.
So the corollary question would be, so by the end of the fiscal year 2022, do you see implementation of being completed, and what would be the phases too, in terms of leading up to 2002, and is there more that would happen beyond? because there's building stabilization issues and restoration and landscaping and all this stuff, right?
So we can speak to this, but the work we're embarking on now is going to clarify what that phasing looks like. It will be multi-year, probably over a couple of years, but that investment in 2021 will be significant and take us a long way. But yeah, the work we're doing now will start to identify the priority stuff and what makes sense to do sooner versus later.
When do you think you'd be able to share with this commission what that timeline would look like?
In terms of the implementation time?
Yeah.
I think we'll start to understand that better next year as we work through the design work. So we're happy to, as we start to line these things up, share information. We're happy to speak to this commission and through council and other ways as that comes together.
Can I just add, just to put the capital investment in context, so the system is 22, 23 parks,
Okay.
and the capital budget for the entire system is in the neighborhood of, the annual capital budget is in the neighborhood of, was it 15 million?
That's correct, but half of that is for land acquisition, so you're down to about 7, and then about half of that 7 is for maintaining things that we already have.
Okay.
So in terms of building new things, it's $3-4 million a year for, as you said, 22 parks and a number of greenways. So it's a big project.
Yeah.
And it'll take some time for us to make sure we have those details in place and implement it. That is a good reference in terms of scale.
Yeah.
That is-
Yeah, and I just really wanted to underscore this. This is big.
Yeah, that's in terms of Metro's budget and whatever. Yeah, that's a good point.
And I guess the other thing to say about it too is it's big in terms of its own process, each of those things. So for instance, we're in the detailed design stage now. We had to do an RFP to get that out, and that turned out to be a far longer process than we had anticipated because, we had questions, we had, we wanted to get it right. You only have sort of the one chance to work that one through. So and then as we go through the design process, we're going to be reassessing the cottages that we're stabilizing and that we'll be rebuilding or whatever. We don't know what we have to do to them in full detail, and so we have to learn what that detail is. We had, an initial assessment done that gave us the sort of big picture and told us sort of the primary things we needed to know, but now we need to get into the nitty-gritty of like what does that look like and what do we have to do anything to them in the meantime, do we, and how do we, rebuild cottage number 12 under that huge Doug fir. Like there's a whole bunch of questions and stuff, and then there's all the stuff that we want to collaborate on, and that there's a workshop involved and all of those kinds of things. So that will be its own process, and then we have to go to tender, and then we have to actually write the tender, and we go through that whole process, and that's, for a project like this, it's fairly significant. So yeah.
Over a number of years, probably the last 20 years or so, Bowen Heritage has invested time and resources into quite a number of, quite detailed. So I'm not sure how detailed the plan will be. I'm sure they'll be interested in what happens to the little checkerboard and the statuary and the trees that were planted and all of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of the things, the details, I guess, like with the trees, for instance, that we've been working on with the Rileys as to like how to, because they will need to be relocated, and so they're all going to stay on site. They're just going to be relocated. They're small enough that we can do that, and so that's a great opportunity. But it's a timing thing, and you have to do it right, and you have to have a plan for it. And it's a thing.
It takes time.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I have a couple. One question I was wondering, which you just alluded to, is if it's going to be, we're looking to, sounds like you're saying 2021 before we're really going to be looking at doing any work on the cottages. What's your plan for preserving them in the meantime? Because they're already in a very poor state.
We'll need to hear from the consultant what, they'll tell us what to do. So
So
they'll be
that's
doing
part of the-
another, that's part of their scope of work for sure. They'll be doing another assessment. We have a structural engineer on board, we have an architect on board, and they will be doing that assessment.
Okay, and so you're hoping that that's going to start happening in the, quite soon then?
Well, the
The
design part is
RFPs are-
underway, that's part of the design,
Right.
but we need to get to 100% design unless there's some big surprise and we're told there's going to be an immediate building collapse or something, but I don't think that that's gonna be the case, so,
Right.
you know, I think we'll have to work through with them and they'll recommend what to do.
Right. And I had a couple of other questions about the specifics of how the process is going to unfold. I think you've talked about it all, but I keep track of it. So you have chosen a company or a group to do the work?
That's right, and we're just in the final stages,
Finalising
I
that?
can't
Yeah.
publicly say who it is just
Right.
yet, but we're just starting that, yeah.
And so, so I'm guessing in the next month or two that will be finished?
Yeah.
And then,
Sorry, what will be finished?
that you will have finalised the
Oh, yes,
selection.
yeah.
And then shortly after that, then I assume several things are going to happen at once. One would be that a public process would unfold of some description, and then the other would be the various parts of work that you talked about, assessing the buildings that are there and doing design work, right?
Yeah.
Am I missing anything?
No, you're
important?
not missing anything.
And the public process, I understand that you're talking about some initial consultation, you mentioned signage, but I don't feel like I have a very good grasp on what the vision is for that, and maybe that vision hasn't been worked out yet. But I think we would really like to know what that's going to be. Once that is established, I think we'd be really interested in exactly what and when. I think that would be really useful.
Yeah.
It would be particularly useful because I think as a commission, we're considering making a request to council to support the work plan that we developed and also to provide some funding to do heritage consultation with the community. So if the two things are proceeding concurrently, they need to be coordinated.
Right,
Mhm.
okay, all right.
Right.
Good to know. All right. And so if you could keep us updated on that, then too, that would be helpful, and that would help us. Maybe we'll talk more as we get to the designing the workshop part and find out kind of where you are with that, because that might help us design that. So, okay, good.
You're saying so we avoid consultation fatigue and confusion and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Yeah, multiple,
just
yeah.
if there are too
Yeah,
many
for sure.
Yeah.
heritage things going on, whereas they're coordinated.
Do you have an idea of when you're planning yours yet, or, okay, well, we'll talk more.
No.
Okay, that's great.
All
Good
subject
to
to
know.
new council
Yeah.
approval.
That's right, yeah.
Was there anything else, Melissa?
No. I'm particularly concerned about preserving the cottages, so I really appreciate some kind of update on that. That would be good. I'm worried about them.
It was one of the things that Jeff and I talked about, was it yesterday? I think it was
Yeah.
yesterday, yeah, at the Parks Committee meeting, just what could be done in the interim to make sure that there isn't further deterioration
We're just
of the cottages. And, I mean, what I was thinking about was in terms of the wall of the museum cottage, you know, when the rain goes a particular way, you've got issues. And also the roof of the office cottage. But were there any other red flags for you?
Oh gosh, I couldn't off the top of my head, but you know, there's a few kind of water issues and obvious roof issues. I just can't remember which cottages are still standing. So I have to go and look in them, but I think it's fairly obvious when you go inside. But you know, a year and a half ago we were saying these things need to be addressed now, and we're a couple of winters down the line, so you know, we could have another big snowy winter with the amount of rain that we've had.
Yeah, if we're not gonna see major work being done until 2021, then that's 2 winters,
Yeah,
2 years.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, great.
Yeah, take your point, and as we said, we'll be sort of looking at the first cut of what some of those issues might be.
Yeah, that would be really,
Because
I
that'll
really
be a bigger
appreciate that.
job in the
Yeah.
long run if the
yeah,
things are dealt with shortly.
yeah. So somebody currently has their roof open and trying to crack, just about water
Repairing
ingress.
roofs, yeah, repairing roofs alone is a known dangerous period in
Yeah.
one's budget and home life.
Yeah.
It's a bit unusual, but I wonder if I could ask Judy. Judy, do you have any questions?
No, I guess I'm wondering if you've looked at the design guidelines that Metro and Bone Heritage agreed to several years ago.
Can you say more about that?
Well, there's a whole list of what the priorities were in terms of similar to a statement of significance in terms of what the guidelines should be in terms of restoring any of the cottages. And we used those and agreed to those. And we did the 2 or the 4 restorations that have already taken place and the other 2 stabilizations that happened. And I guess it's not the museum and the office cottage that are in dire need. It's the Friends of the Library and the storage cottage there.
Right. Okay.
It's been neglected for a long.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it number 12 you're talking about?
Um,
The one by the big tree?
The one under the tree.
That's-
Number 12. Yeah,
Is it 12?
yeah, that's it.
And the one between, the one that has painted, that painted on it, no, it's not that one, is it?
It's 14 and 12 that you were worried about.
Right.
Yeah, and those are the ones that we're most worried about too.
Okay.
Yeah, because the other ones are all stable. I know that there are water issues with the other ones and stuff, but yeah, that's one of the things we'll be dealing with initially with the consultants. Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
And was there anything else, Judy? Talk more?
Well, the design guidelines are, I mean, lots of people work very hard in terms of both the federal and the provincial
Okay. Okay, thank you.
requirements, and that's, been talked about extensively, so that was something that Metro had agreed to.
Do you have them?
Yes, we do have them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Okay, well, if there are no other questions? There are no other questions. Thank you very much for coming this evening.
All right. Thanks very much.
Appreciate the
having
trip.
us.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Sylvia. Good night, Jack. Okay,
I was looking at the plan, the regional parks plan, and I think it's interesting. It's a 2016 document. And I looked for what it had to say about heritage. The word does not appear
in the service plan.
in the entire regional parks plan. The word heritage does not appear once. It's just not in the mandate.
Did you search on historic?
No.
They go through periods of linguistic trend.
Uh-huh.
So, heritage was a somewhat verboten word in 2016, whereas
Oh, really?
historic
Try looking under
was
demolition.
more appropriate. I mean, the bottom line though is that there are heritage historic buildings throughout the system.
There are, but what's interesting is that it is clear from this document and from what other documents say about how does this fit with the municipal park system. That clearly the municipal park system is more concerned with buildings and historic stuff.
No, the municipal park system is more concerned with recreational
Right.
opportunities and
Whereas the
trails.
regional one is more concerned with ecological kind
Nature.
of stuff. But
Yeah.
neither one of them really looks that much at heritage. And
Yeah.
that's a shame. Because it should be a
Well,
fact.
it's more than a shame, because often when pieces of land are in whatever way transferred into park systems, they often carry heritage buildings with them because of the history of how that piece of land comes to
Yeah,
be transferred, so
Yep.
it's an issue. I was thinking about that.
Doesn't the interpretive trails and walks and things work in with their plan?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so they match. And you can have lots of photograph places like kiosks of photos. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities for that sort of
and
thing.
I think they have good intentions. All I'm saying is that they have no precedent for doing this kind of work.
Yeah. You know, it's
Or no
not,
mandate.
No,
The
but they're,
word
in their
historic
mandate,
doesn't appear either.
in their mandate, heritage isn't an end in itself, it's a means to an end. So heritage works to achieve an end.
If you look
right?
at their 4 primary goals, they have nothing, they all have to do with with tourism and natural amenities.
They do,
not have to use
but Dave, on the ground, if you actually go and look at what they are doing, particularly in the eastern part of the park system, you'll see that there are heritage buildings that are actively supported and in use. And I think that one of the important things that we might consider doing is a field
I
trip
think that would be.
and going and actually looking at what's
Yeah.
going on in
I've been
Campbell
working.
Valley and
Yeah.
there will be other parks out there because there are thriving heritage buildings in regional parks.
There's a heritage airport.
Yes.
In,
Which strikes me as
Very
absolutely
big.
bizarre, but
yeah,
yes,
Mhm.
yeah,
there is a
Huge
heritage airport that is supported by Metro
yeah.
Parks.
Well, this is one of the reasons I made my point about how Davies Orchard is a funnel to bring people into nature. Because if your mandate isn't heritage per se, if it's a means to an end, then let's help them think through how the heritage and the interpretation is a means to their end and serves the nature end, right? Yeah.
So I'm gonna pull this back to our
Yeah,
action items.
sorry.
No, that was useful, Dave, thank you. So we have a truckload of action items here. And I think some of them are just going to have to carry over unless someone has additional information. From the 15th, I think Kathy's work is still ongoing. Is that to the best of your knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll carry that over. Steph, you did call us for a date for the Heritage Trail Walkabout. That's done. And Melissa, following up with John Bowler about featuring the old general store. Did that happen?
No,
Nope.
but I'm meeting him on Monday.
Okay. So to come. Dave, following up with the Arts Council.
Yeah, it's been done, that's on the agenda.
Okay. Report back to the commission on the Flinroe visit to Bowen Island. I think I did do that, but it really was just simply that they came, they took a look at the orchard site, and they were overwhelmed with everything they saw on Bowen Island, and nothing much came of it. So Flinroe is Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations.
So I think there was a context of that they are now the Heritage Department. They own the heritage. They are the home of heritage now. I think that was why.
The Heritage Branch was
Yeah.
part of Flinroe, yeah. Steph?
It wasn't, we've not had an opportunity to go into any depth on that. It was an economic development committee initiative, and they were very aware I remember being aware of what was going on.
Yeah, but new staff, and a new staff person, just getting the bearings as far as what Bowen was and what its potential might be from an economic
That was one of the
perspective.
few places that they visited, so it's, they all know it's significant.
Yeah. Was it in the context of Lebanon, perhaps?
That would have been
Not
David's
so
orchard.
much. Yeah. It was, here's the orchard, things are going on. Yeah. Be aware of it, because there may be some opportunities here in the future. The flow chart, Dave, you did this
Yeah, we didn't develop a flow chart, but basically we developed a process
yeah,
that explains what needs to be done next.
great. And number 6, Peter?
No, I think the action item needs to be amended slightly. I think I agreed to contribute the site description element of a heritage register application. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do the whole thing. We probably need to
Sorry,
work
well, the site
a description.
element of a heritage register.
Was that actually, gosh, I think I need it to be less than 5 months
Yeah.
between meetings, because this is all, so just, I don't even remember, but was that related to the national register?
So the minutes
The
are
National
here,
Register,
but there is the context.
National Historic Sites
Yeah,
application.
yeah,
Because we already have a draft heritage register.
yeah, totally, exactly. So that's why I was thinking it was a historic site
Yeah.
thing. I think these are mostly related to Lebanon.
Yeah, this is under the Lebanon
This is
section.
all a Lebanon discussion.
Mm.
That's why I was thinking that about the plan
I
road
don't
thing
think it's
as well.
Glen Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a draft
It is perfect.
National Historic Site application.
Sorry, say that again, please.
Well, rather than heritage register, it's the draft National Historic Site
Okay. And
application. And I was willing to do the site description part like I did for the other
Oh,
register
yeah.
ones. I wasn't
Right, right.
going to do the whole. It's a major piece of work.
Yeah.
so are you still comfortable with doing that piece of work?
Yeah, I can just guarantee when I will get to it. Things are very busy at work and getting
no,
busier.
I get it.
Yeah.
So, Steph, did you get the revision there?
So it's going to be, you will be writing the site description part of
Of a National Historic Site application.
Okay.
And we'll need to talk about who else wants to work on this.
And then Kathy, we don't know, the earlier draft inventory that included private homes on the next commission meeting agenda for review and discussion. So Steph does have that, but we'll distribute it on table because it includes private homes.
All right, cool.
Obtain a copy of the District of Tofino's Heritage Master Plan. So it is included in the agenda. The important takeaway from meeting with Josie Osborne, so we've had ad hoc meetings since May.
Yeah.
Did a
2
walk.
ad hoc meetings.
We met with
Yeah.
Josie Osborne, the mayor of Tofino. Her comments regarding her community's master plan was it was great, and they didn't do anything with it.
Right.
Yeah, so they have this beautiful plan that didn't get implemented, and it didn't sound as though there was a great deal of energy in order to move forward with it. So the warning, if I'm paraphrasing this correctly, the warning was be careful with your planning and that you don't just get stuck planning and not do any of the
Yeah.
implementation. It is a beautiful plan. Canvas, Tofino Mayor's, yeah, we did that, her availability, we met with her. Were you there? I don't remember. No. Peter and Angela.
Concept here.
Review the City of Roslyn's Heritage Commission's website, and that was just for inspiration. If we get to the point where we're able to have a heritage-focused site. Talk to Emma Charles, staff liaison, about consulting with BC Ferries representative on its destinations and Worship Bay Terminal, and on board. So that was a visual representation in the terminal and on the ferry for historic images. And I did have that conversation. It's early days for the revamping of the Horseshoe Bay terminal. Blurb regarding the archives, AGM, that happened. Andrew
I
Todd.
haven't done that. Well, I have spoken to him briefly, but I haven't spoken to him right time.
Is that something you want to continue?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be good to do it while this metro process is going on, because I think it could be a helpful addition to that.
And then reach out to the leave-in relatives. I don't think that's happened.
I made a little stab, it didn't go very far,
No?
just on Facebook, with Cyril Burney. Had Kevin say hi, he said hi back. That was the end of it, so I'm like,
That was the end of the outreach, okay.
that was the end.
All right,
Sorry.
so we've been hit and miss on our action items.
I'm sorry.
So what are you left with there, Steph? Let's
So
go
I
through
have
it.
ongoing are number 1 and number, sorry, back to this. 1 and 2 at the top.
Mhm.
2, 6 with a word fix, 7, 13 and 14, 15 ongoing.
Okay,
Yeah? Makes sense?
yeah, that makes sense, I believe.
What about 4 though?
Report back to the commission, I feel like that just happened.
Yes, but if it was to speak to them about leaving, which I kind of feel like it was to begin the liaison with, to open the conversation with the province about Leaven becoming a heritage site.
Okay, then let's make it more specific than
Yes.
what's here,
Yes,
because this
it's not.
is related
Yes.
to a visit that took
Yes.
place some months ago. So
Yes,
just a new action item, which is to liaise with the heritage branch
yes,
of the province, rather than with,
about Leaven.
with,
Let's open a conversation with them about Leaven. The heritage.
And speaking of Lebanon, Dave, do you want to go through what you have in the agenda package here?
It pretty well speaks for itself. There is a process. The important thing that I found out is that you do not need to get designation at municipal or provincial level before you can go direct to national designation. And nothing that I have read, and I read everything I could on the subject, indicates that it's necessarily more expedient to choose one route rather than the other. The other thing that they said, although it's difficult to follow because some of their links are broken, but by digging around I found alternative links with the same information, is the question of, well, let me start with the recommendation. My recommendation is that we write to the Secretariat, which is a commission of Parks Canada, with our nomination, and that letter come jointly from the Heritage Commission and from the Arts Council, since they both have an interest in that. There's a process, one of these links gives you the precise process. There's also a brochure which isn't reproduced here, but it was attached to the email if you can find the original copy. But the brochure is actually a little more succinct at pointing out these are the steps in the process, and it's worth looking at. So that would be my recommendation, is that rather than going to the province, that we do it directly as a federal thing. I think my rationale for that is that Lebanon is important nationally. It's not just a provincial thing. It wasn't just provincial artists came here, it was from all over Canada. So I believe it logically should be a federal registration. But the glitch in all of this is that the process for getting this registration requires the consent of the current property owner. And the current property owner, although it's ambiguous because of the fact that it's a bit in limbo, the current property owner would appear to be the province. So even though I still think it makes sense, because if we went through the province, we'd be just dealing with the province, but we'd be dealing with different jurisdictions in the province. Notwithstanding the fact that I think we have to get provincial permission, I still believe it makes more sense for us to seek national designation. And what the website says, I noticed the note here that getting National Historic Site designation isn't the same thing as being on the Canadian Register of Historic Places. But the Fed's documents say that if you get placed, if you get designated as a National Historic Site, then you will be automatically in time, and they say that in there, they say there's a time lag, but it will occur automatically in time. It will be automatically added to the Canadian Registry of Historic Places. So.
And I think we knew that point, or something like it. We didn't know the
Probably.
timing thing, but yeah.
Yeah, probably. So I think that would be my recommendation, that the two organizations jointly submit our nomination, and that we also write a letter to the appropriate provincial organization, and I don't know off the top of my head who that would be. We'd have to figure out who actually has authority for that land right now. I don't know if people know the history of it. Basically, it was entrusted to a provincial organization to maintain it in perpetuity as a historic site. And the legislation under which that trust was signed and the organization that was set up to take
No longer
ownership
exists.
no longer exists.
So it's now just crown land.
So basically, it's just provincial land. They could go in there and they could clear cut it tomorrow if they wanted to.
But they won't.
I don't think they will, because I think they would respect the fact that there is.
So question, Dave. So, in terms of process though, I'm assuming that the feds won't accept or review our application unless we've stated in our application that we have provincial approval to do so, consent to do so, and it's included as a letter or document within our application.
I think that would be better to have provincial consent. I think the alternative would be to say we are in the process of obtaining provincial consent, as the province is currently the owner, and we will forward that consent to you as soon as we have received it. We could go either way.
I'm just wondering about community awareness of our doing so, and making certain that people understand what this actually means.
Use a plaque, basically.
Yeah.
It entails no protection of the
Yeah.
land. That's was the other interesting thing. I thought there was some shield that you could kind of hold up to say, okay, it's designated, so you can't go in there and clear cut it. They could still go in and clear cut it, even if they gave us permission.
It's a moral shield.
It's a moral. Yeah.
Moral dilemma.
Okay, so there are a whole bunch of things here. What are the priorities in terms of moving forward? I mean, the letter going forward, you know, that's jointly authored by a Heritage Commission and BIAC. There's getting some advice about what the best way is to move that forward. You know, whether it really would be desirable to have the province to concur to begin with. It's still sounding to me as though we need to have a conversation with the province initially. Am I wrong?
I think it would be helpful. I don't think it's essential, but I think it would be helpful.
Okay.
I think
So-
it makes a better presentation if you have the province
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah.
So question, Maureen, and if we're going to approach the province for their permission, would it not be better to actually have a draft, be able to send them a draft copy of what the applications look like so that they understand the importance of it?
Yeah.
So it comes back to still
So we could-
drafting the application.
Probably.
Right, so we could do the application in draft, send it in advance to the province
With a letter, yeah.
with, and then when they say yes, then it's just a case of
Yes.
forwarding.
I think we should send them a package, because nobody's gonna know what that land is. They're not gonna know what Laban is. It's not gonna be on the bottom of their file on their desk. So I've seen Trevor Cappy did a presentation, and that would probably be put into a little package.
We've had a number of presentations here
Yeah.
on the,
Laban, yeah, so I
that
think,
could be
yeah,
put
must be.
together. So, I mean, so this is quite specific. I mean, we actually can move forward
Yeah.
with this.
And we could either do it, or we could ask BIAC to do it, because I think the Arts Council would be prepared to draft it.
I think that would be a good idea. If BIAC would put the package together, and if they would draft the letter,
Right.
draft our letter.
BIAC
then-
has more experience with this and
Right.
more resources that
Well,
they've
right.
invested in it over.
But with regards to your other question, who should we talk to find out how this process works? What are the ins and outs, what are the things that we have to make sure are in this
Yeah.
document in order for them to check off?
I think at this point, we might get some direction from Wendy Coe, who is our economic development liaison with Flinro. She's been in the job long enough, and she's proven to be, in the months she's been in the position, she's proven to be really useful in opening some doors.
So should I set up a meeting then with Wendy and with Jackie or her designate? Who else can I-
Let me give me the action item of talking with Wendy
Okay,
and just seeing whether she actually is the right person.
okay,
And then, once we figure out who the right person is, we'll connect you, Jackie, and that person
okay.
to move forward specifically,
Right.
on this. I mean, it would be really nice to have a bit of a win. Yeah.
I think, though, you could carry on doing, you could ask someone to do that package though, like I don't think you have to wait for Maureen to get,
I
I
agree.
think all
Yeah.
that stuff is,
All right,
all those materials are gonna be needed, like explanation of what the land is, how it came to be the province, the argument as to why they can't do whatever they like with it.
yeah.
And-
Jackie may end up having to delegate much of that work to somebody else, but
Yeah,
I think she's the point person. She's got the history and she
Okay.
knows
she,
what's involved.
does she have, I'm wondering, she probably has photos of the site, like existing photos, because Peter took all those photos before.
She made the presentation, did she not?
But that was a historic presentation, wasn't it? Or, I can't remember, Peter,
Well,
you got all
Steph
those
has all,
photos.
yeah, but
Yeah,
for
those
the,
next
Yeah,
photos
yeah,
from
you
that visit.
from the visit, yeah.
So
She
maybe-
has the historic
Yeah,
stuff.
so
But
maybe
I don't
then,
think-
if needed, they could be shared, so.
Yeah,
it's-
if there are current photos
There are.
of the site,
Yes, exactly.
as long as they say something, I don't
Yeah,
want to put
it just
anything,
shows that it's an
I don't
unusual
want to
site.
say this, yeah.
Those photos are from
I just don't want to put anything in the package they're
On
going
my
to say,
phone.
what in the world?
Greenways
We're approving
have
this for
photos.
what?
Well, I mean, it shows that they're not gonna sell it, right? Like, it's not like they're signing away a vast, profitable
Yeah,
tract of land, which I think is probably what they're concerned with.
That'd be a great housing site, wouldn't it?
My
Great views.
my sense looking at the criteria is that if there is an objection, the objection is that there's nothing there right now, or very little there right now, that they can kind of, say, okay, you're at the plat, now you want to go here and look at this, and you want to go here and look at this, and you want to go here and look at this. And the terrain is such that we might not even want people to go wandering
But
down
I
to
think,
this site.
so for the province's perspective, they don't care whether it's a worthy site or not, they only care whether they have to resist the process or not.
Right,
And from the National Historic Sites perspective, it could be a small stretch of railway track, or,
Right.
Or the plains of
somewhere where there
Abraham
was a
with nothing
famous
on it.
brawl.
Just a
or, you know,
field,
like it's-
right?
Yeah, it could be, I don't think it doesn't have to be attractive or accessible, it only has to be historic, so. I think
Remind
that's
me,
the
what
way-
does FLNRO stand for? I'm not good with acronyms.
Greenways have walked it and talked about it.
Sorry?
Greenways have walked it and talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have photos and everything, current ones.
there is some material that's been pulled together for a proposed book on Lebanon, which is, you know, mostly stories and photographs. And I don't think we send that into the application, but I think it helps our cause to say we've got this, and also to tell them that there is potentially a play in the offing that will feature, and then drop all those famous Canadian names. You know, the more we can put that in the application, I think, the better chance we have of getting approved.
Well, luckily we've got more time to do the application, because if we're going to do the provincial piece first, and then move forward with the application.
So in terms of action items, I'm talking with Wendy. What else do we have recorded here?
And then David is going to liaise with Baya regarding drafting the letter and the application package for the feds. NHS.
Is he?
He said yes.
Yeah, I said I was willing to get Bayak to draft it, and then we'll send it to you.
Oh, right. I thought we were doing it at the province this fall.
And then we send it to Melissa, unless do you have an action after that?
Now, can we pause because I'm confused now? We're going to send a package to the province, right? A package and a copy of the letter
Right.
to the province
In advance
to
of
look
the-
for their approval.
Yes.
And then at the same time, we're going to work on doing the application to the federal.
I guess the package would
Exactly.
include the draft application,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or,
so I'll have to input it.
I think it will. I think we prepare it for the feds, and then before we send it to the feds, we
Okay.
send it to the
got it.
province and say,
Right.
yeah.
we're asking for your permission.
Here-
And
Here's
then-
what it's about, and we're serious, and we've done
Right.
all this work.
Yeah.
And if you say no, we're gonna be really,
Yeah. We're coming round.
on it, we've got a deadline.
I think we're probably better off making it easy for them rather than making
Yeah.
it more difficult.
make it a no-brainer, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, two action items moving that forward. So subcommittee reports, are there any updates from any of the subcommittees?
I think,
I don't think there are.
no.
No.
So organization updates, is there anything new from the Heritage Preservation Association?
I don't know.
There is an AGM
Yes,
on
Saturday,
Saturday,
3 to 5.
3 to 5,
3 to 5. 3 to 5.
at
Yes.
Ethics, okay. With Michael Gluckner as the guest speaker. Anything else on it?
Yeah, that would be good.
Museum and Archives, we don't have a rep here. Arts Council, David?
Nothing to
anything?
report.
There is a public art policy that was presented to council on Tuesday evening. It's the second presentation, and with some minor revisions, it looks like it will be shortly adopted. With provision for annual funding and some operational support for a public art advisory committee. So that's quite significant. That's the realization of one of the objectives of the cultural master plan,
Right.
to get that in place. So, well done.
Is there an understanding among this group of what that has to do with heritage?
In terms of the policy itself?
Yeah, public art policy. Why did?
Say more.
Well, my sense is that the value of having a public art policy creates a framework within which we can do joint activities. Activities that involve, you know, pathways, art, public art, and heritage, notices and other historical things alongside it. And I think in some cases, the public art may actually have a heritage theme to it. Probably not that often, but sometimes. So, you know, I can envision, you know, if we ever get the trail going right across the entire island, that it would be a great opportunity for us to tie.
It's Harding Road now.
Yeah. Great opportunity for us to tie together trailways, which is something that is very heavily used on this island, heritage and public art altogether. So, for that reason, I'm excited and enthused about this. I think the issue of public art, everything that I've seen about public art indicates that it is always controversial. I mean, the thing about art in an art gallery is if you don't like it, you don't have to look at it. The minute public art becomes something that's in public spaces, everybody has an opinion. And it's been problematic just about everywhere if you look at the history of public art policies. The biggest problem isn't the policies and the maintenance and stuff like that. It's the disagreements about the aesthetics and what is art. And so I don't envy whoever has to be involved in that process.
We shall see what happens. Maybe we'll get a cannon in the cove as they do on Lonsdale. Have you seen that?
Camel?
Gigantic camel on Lonsdale in Main Street. And the question was, why is there a camel on Lonsdale?
Where on Lonsdale?
Where is it now?
Why is there the bowl downtown on the, whatever corner that is?
Oh, Homer or something?
Yeah.
So we're
Old
just-
Market, I don't know.
We're proving Dave's point here. Yes, I mean, the camel is beloved by some and loathed by others.
Yep.
Maureen, if I realized there was no mention of Bowfest in the Bowen Heritage report, I don't know.
You mean
Judy.
Applefest?
Pardon?
Applefest. Oh,
That's
yes,
what I think, Bowfest, Applefest,
Yeah.
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 very successful
Which
despite
was
the
Very
rain.
well attended.
Very well attended.
No apple pies at 11:15.
Yeah.
And it's very annoying. Okay, the new business is actually returning to our work plan. And what's included in your agenda package is the plan that Emma put together this time last year. And what I would like to suggest is that we simply resubmit it with the request for funding support and put it on the agenda for a new council so that they can make a decision. One of the questions at the all candidates meeting on Saturday was specifically about how would council candidates support heritage in order to retain the heritage element of our community. And that's not quite how it was put, but that was the gist of it. And the majority of the respondents, there were 5 respondents, and the majority of them really didn't have much in the way of a response. So,
Aside from one sitting councillor who said we need to know what a heritage register is.
we need to know what a heritage register is, and we need to fund a heritage plan and do public engagement, which is exactly what this is. So the incoming council at least has a bit of a heads up that heritage may be more of an issue in the coming term, and perhaps more deserving of support than it has received in the past.
So if the new councillors, and I suppose maybe several new ones, will want to know what a heritage register is, I guess we could resubmit both the register as well as the details. Should the plan be updated though by the planner to move the stars and change the dates? Because currently
Yeah.
2016
Very
has passed,
behind.
2017 has almost already passed.
Yeah.
So that would need to be.
So action item for Emma to update the work plan to reflect 2019.
Can I ask a question that you don't have to answer? And that is, why do we feel that it is possible that if we resubmit the same plan that was turned down last time, that we'll have a different outcome this time?
It wasn't turned down.
It
was just
wasn't,
put on
it
hold.
wasn't turned down, it was put on hold. The timing, in terms of council being familiar with the budgetary constraints are different this time around. This went in at a point when the finance area of the municipality was in transition.
Okay.
We have a new CFO who has a different financial planning process.
Okay.
So I think there is a prospect of a different outcome. It's a good question.
I do wonder though if we need to have some sort of context about why. I agree with the just resubmit it because that's what we have capacity for.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there needs to be something in there about what a heritage strategic plan is, like what is the objective and what is the kind of benefit. I don't know. That could be a bit. It's a big issue. But if we've got a new council, it might not. Depends how many new people there are.
Yeah. Action item for you and me as
Okay.
co-chairs of the
Yeah.
commission to actually prepare the preamble to
Yeah.
give this a context.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
Do we do workshops for council on topics to bring them up?
Yeah, they're not done on an ongoing basis. When the last council came in, we had a fairly grueling day where all of the committees and commissions and so on came in and talked about what they did, what their concerns were, what they hope to do, etc. I'm not sure what the structure is going to be this time around. I know there is an orientation session that's planned for the 15th of November, I believe, for the new council, and whether that includes presentations from committees and so forth, I'm not certain. But at some point, there will have to be some sort of presentation to bring, because there will be at least one new person.
So
in
council gets it, yeah.
Yeah,
And remind them also.
yeah, yeah. And also brings them up to date on changes from the perspective of the commission. Because we were new 3 years ago, it's one of the things that Steph reached out and said that our mandate, the terms are up in November, is it, of this year. So, I mean, that's not unusual, you know, people come down to term, but there's going to be, you know, a call for, you know, a renewal of expressions of interest in continuing on as candidates. So there's, and there is some appetite on the part of some council candidates to look at the number of committees that we have. It's, what, 22, 26?
The idea that that's fatal, it's like, what's that with the Mickey Mouse, the thing where he chops up all the brooms and he gets a million brooms. Every time people say they're going to reduce the number of committees, they end up with twice as many.
Yeah. Well,
I can hear the music in my head.
well, we shall see what the outcome of that discussion is, but I think all of that's going to sort of precede any discussion of what the Heritage Commission is going to be doing. It'll be more sort of macro level. Do we really want 26 committees, staff, committee clerk? Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we need to speak about?
Next meeting
Next meeting.
will be after the election.
I just encourage everybody to look out for the Heritage Trail little thingies and have a quick look about and see
I've
what.
been doing that.
Have you?
I've been wandering around my phone and having enjoyable little walks and learning about more, living more outside. Yeah.
I'll read about parks and trails on Tuesday, speaking of all the committees, we do a reminder with them, I'll see on.
Yeah.
Like,
Would it be okay
Yeah.
if we allow the next meeting to be confirmed until the dust settles?
Oh, yeah.
But in the meantime, if staff can send out the action items and those of us who have action items just move forward
Yeah,
on them.
actually will.
And to acknowledge Josephine, who is
Yeah,
leaving the
yes.
island
Yeah.
after 23 years.
Oh, we've been here a lot longer than
A lot longer than that? How many years?
I don't, do I really have to say
No,
that?
you don't.
It's a very long
Years.
time.
And to thank you so much for putting in, for Heritage Orchard again.
That was great, lots of fun.
So new adventures in Salt Spring? Is that
No,
where
we're
you're
going
No,
to
you're going
Comox
to
Valley,
Comox.
Echo
Yeah.
Island,
Oh,
Comox
okay.
Valley, yeah.
Thank you for your service.
Very welcome, it was lots of fun.
So with that,